Hi, I am. I will introduce you to a veteran, Robert Tice, who is also our homeowner. He fought in Vietnam War from April 1969 to April 1970. I will ask him some questions in this interview to understand his experience in Vietnam War. I am really thankful to him for serving in the army and for this interview. Why did you
Go in?
why did you go into the war?
Well, I was drafted, which means they send you a letter and they tell you when you're young, man, they say, we need you to go and be in the service, and then we need you to fight in the war or whatever. And at that time, we were in Vietnam, so they didn't have enough people that were going in voluntarily. So they were drafting people like 19, 20, 21-year-olds to go in, and drafting means that you don't have a choice. You go in and they just tell you, okay, you're in, that's it.
So what? Yeah, ask it.
So, why are you a veteran?
Okay, because when you serve in the military, you are, after you're out of the military, they call you a veteran. That means that you've already been in and now you're out, and then you're called a veteran.
What part of the military are you in?
Okay, Army,
Yeah.
artillery, the cannons, the big guns that shoot. These guns shoot for 20 miles. They could hit Boulder from here. That's how powerful these guns were. The rounds that went in the artillery piece, like the bullets, that they'd shoot, these projectiles weighed like 150 pounds.
So who you were hitting? So who you were hitting?
Yeah, we were hitting the enemy, which were the North Vietnamese, and they were communist troops. And the reason that we were there was Vietnam was divided into two countries. North Vietnam were the communists. South Vietnam were the ones that didn't want communism, that we were helping stay free of communism. And that's how it was, like a civil war between the two, North and the South. They spoke the same language, ate the same food, had the same culture, but one wanted to be communist and the other didn't. And the South Vietnamese wanted our help to stay free of communism, so we sent troops over, and like helicopters, guns, and all that stuff from 1961 to when we left in 1972. And then we left them all of our equipment, and we said, it's up to you now to fight them on your own. But they didn't have the same will as the North Vietnamese, so in 1974, 2 years later, they surrendered, and the whole country came under communist rule. So at that point, we had basically gone over there and tried to do what we could do. It was a noble cause, but it just didn't work out. Yeah. Okay.
So, where did you get food from?
Okay, food was sent over in ships, and most of it was canned food that we had when we were out in the field. But then when we were at a base camp, we would get hot meals, and just like at a cafeteria, you'd go there and you'd eat regular food. And once in a while, they would send out hot food to us. They tried to get it out there as often as they could in these thermos canisters full of regular food like stew or spaghetti and stuff like that. But a lot of times we just had to eat canned food.
Yeah.
They were called C rations. Those are meaning canned food. And then it wasn't. They weren't. A lot of people. I didn't mind them, but a lot of people really couldn't stand them. They were not like your mother's home cooking.
So, where did you get water from?
The water was sent. That's a very good question. The helicopters, like this helicopter right here, would they would have these big rubber balloons. They were called blivets, and they were about like maybe this big around and about this tall, and they would fill them full of water, and they would bring them by helicopter, and they would drop them down to us, and we'd use that for, drinking and shaving and washing and everything. They were called blivets. That's a good question.
So, who were you with?
Okay, then I was in an artillery group with a group of guys that were about 200. And our job, when I was first there, was to work the big guns to send these high explosive rounds out into the, where we were supporting our troops. So if we had men out there that were fighting, and there was a bunch of them out in front, and they'd call us and they'd say, "We need help." So we would send these artillery shells over their heads and land on the enemy to help them, with the battle that they were fighting. So that's and then depending, like sometimes. I ended up in an armored unit with tanks and tracks, but we had these artillery pieces that were mechanized. They were like tank artillery pieces.
So, did they ever fight? No. Who were they? How did you sleep?
Okay, when we were in base camp, we had bunkers that were underground, because the enemy would send over these rockets, and if you weren't covered up underground, they could explode near you and hurt you or kill you. So when you're in the base camp, you had a bunker that was about 6 feet underground, and they had double bunks down there, and we'd sleep down there. But then when I was in the field, we would just sleep on cots outside of the vehicle that we would ride in during the day.
But then, how did you get into the bunks if they were 6 feet underground?
Into the bunker? Okay, that's another good question. They used to have sandbags at the front entrance of the bunker in case one exploded right out there, so that the blast wouldn't come down and hurt anybody. But then they had an entrance dug out, and you could walk down into the bunker on some steps or some, like some sandbags, and then you could get down there, and it would be just like if we were here, and above us was the ground, and we were underground.
Like basement.
Right, that's right, like in the basement. That's exactly right.
And where is Vietnam?
Where is Vietnam?
Okay, that's in Southeast Asia, across the Pacific Ocean from us, south and east of us, and it's near China. It's if you know where that is.
So how did you go there from here?
How did you go there from here?
Okay, another good question. We were lucky enough, by then, they took us over in commercial airlines, like United Airlines or Delta. They flew us into a big base in the south part of the country called Bien Hoa. And then after we got there, then we would go on a smaller plane to a replacement depot, and that's where you got assigned to whatever unit that you were going to go to.
So,
A question.
as a veteran, how do you feel?
Now, that's a very good question. Most of us that went over there really kind of feel sad that it didn't work out the way that we had all hoped, because we put our heart and soul into it, and we fought hard, and we never lost a battle. The only reason that the other side won was because it was taking such a toll on our soldiers that people back in the United States and the media, like the newspapers and the newscasters, were all kind of getting down on us being, in the war. So they thought the best thing for us to do was to get out. And a lot of us kind of felt bad that we needed to leave before we had, accomplished that. And I think that had it been run correctly, and had we had the support of of everyone, I don't think it would have been. We could have easily, won that, and it wouldn't have worked out so badly. But a lot of us feel bad about that today.
So, How did you come back?
Okay, I was lucky enough to fly back commercial again, just like on a big United airplane, and we called it the Freedom Bird, because when we were in the field, every once in a while one of them would come over and they would be taking guys home. You only had to spend 1 year there, and if you lived through the year, then you got to go home on this nice jet back to the United States. And we would look up at what we called the Freedom Bird, and then we would talk about, we called it going back to the world. Going back to the world was the world that we knew back in the U.S., back when we grew, where we grew up. So we would always look at those big, commercial airplanes thinking, well, one day we'll get a chance to go on that. And then I eventually did get to go on that. It was great.
Did you get any injuries or get hurt?
That's a good question. I was so lucky that I came through it without a scratch. I mean, I lost some hearing, and then I had what's called PTSD afterwards, which means that your brain isn't quite right, and you have to get treated for it. But overall, I can't complain. I mean, I came through it. So many guys that I was with, they either got wounded or killed, and I'm just very fortunate to have come through it in one piece.
So, I don't have